Eighth regular meeting, February 22nd, 2022 of the Medford City Council is called to order. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Vice President Parrish.
Present.
Council Carviallo.
Present.
Council Collins.
Present.
Council Knight.
Present.
Council Scarpelli.
Present.
Council Singh. President Morrell.
Present. 7 present, 0 absent. Meeting is called to order. Please rise to salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Hearings 22-056, City of Medford, notice of a public hearing. The Medford City Council will hold a public hearing in the Howard F. Alden Chambers at Medford City Hall, 85 George B. Hassett Drive, Medford, and via Zoom on Tuesday, February 22nd, 2022. A link to be posted no later than Friday, February 18th, 2022 on a petition from Casa Pizza, Milton Melgar, 62 Lambert Street, Medford, Mass. 02155 for a special permit to amend its hours of operation in accordance with Medford zoning ordinance Chapter 94, Section 94-145 to operate extended hours at its business at 62 Lambert Street, Medford, Mass. Said site being located in a commercial 1C1 zoning district as follows. Extended hours of operation requested 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. 7 days per week. Petition and plan may be seen in the office of the city clerk, room 103, Medford City Hall, Medford, Massachusetts. Call 781-393-2501 for any accommodations or aids. TDD 781-393-2516. The City of Medford is an equal opportunity AA 504 employer. For information, contact the city clerk 781-393-2425 by order of the City Council. Signed, Adam L. Hurtubise, City Clerk, advertised in the Medford Transcript February 3rd and February 10th. As this is a public hearing, we'll open with those in favor of the petition. Is there anyone here in favor of the petition? Please come up to the podium and provide your name and address for the record, please. Hi, name and address for the record, please. And your name? Thank you. And you're in favor of this petition?
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else in favor of the petition? This portion of the hearing is closed. Anyone opposed to the petition? Seeing and hearing none, this portion of the meeting is closed. Chair of the Subcommittee on Licensing, Councilor Scarpelli.
Thank you, Madam President. And I've gone through all of the paperwork. We find everything in order. I know that I've talked to a few, and it's my neighborhood. I've talked to a few of Mr. Melgar's neighbors, and they are very pleased of how he's running the business. I haven't heard any negative banter in any way from his business location. I think that what he's asking for, I would support, and just put a 90-day review on this process, as we normally have done with most of these requests, that we give Mr. Melgar the opportunity to open from 11 to 2. And after the 90 days, we visit to see if we've had any concerns or issues from the neighbors or police or anything and the like. So I would move to approve with the 90-day review.
On the motion of Councilor Scarpelli to approve with a 90-day review, seconded by Vice President Bears. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll. Sorry. Councilor Knight has his hand up. Councilor Knight.
I do have a couple of concerns relative to a business being open till 2 a.m. 7 days a week that abuts residential neighborhood. We know this location. We know where it's located, Lambert Streets, and right there in the corner. It abuts a number of homes. What type of business do you get? Is most of your volume foot traffic? Can the applicant give us a little bit more insight into what's going on at the place? Is it mostly foot traffic, mostly delivery type of stuff? I mean, I'm very reluctant to say, yes, they open till 2 o'clock in the morning on Sunday, right? With foot traffic. I don't want this to be the place where people are leaving the casino or the bar room and they're saying, let's stop at Medford at Casa Pizza on the way home because it's right off of the Fells Way. So that's a concern that I have. So I was just wondering, is most of your business delivery? Is most of your business walk-in? And we can just provide some insight to that.
Did you understand the question?
Yes, I mean, I would do delivery only the late night as to 11. There's no one available for.
Okay, so the question was, you planning on mostly having like Grubhub combined take food, or is it
Yes.
gonna be mostly
Yes.
people coming in? What do you envision? People
Just-
walking in at 2 in.?
No, not just walking, just for delivery.
Okay.
So would a delivery only restriction be something that would be suitable from 11 to 2 a.m.? Would that work for you? And then maybe on Friday and Saturday, allowing them to stay open till 2 o'clock in the morning for patrons as well, something like that?
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
So the question, he said, would you be amendable to, if his request is that you do delivery only from Monday through Friday, Monday through Thursday, and then from 11 to 2, just do delivery, and then on Saturday, Friday and Saturdays, open till 2 o'clock?
Correct.
Would you do that?
Yeah, can do that.
Is that correct, Counselor?
That sounds absolutely correct, Mr. Chairman. I'd certainly support the application with those restrictions in the 90-day review. After the 90-day review, if things are going good, then maybe we can move on some of those as well. But I'd hate to go grant a full approval and then have them come back 90 days after operating. If let's maybe ease into this a little bit and take a look at it, and at the 90-day review, if we can lift some of these restrictions or requirements, we might be in a better spot in protecting the neighborhood.
Thank you. To review for the Mr. Melguy, what Council Knight's asking, if it's okay that we do a 90-day review, that you on Friday and Saturday say open till 2, but Sunday through Thursday, you do only delivery from 11 to 2.
Yeah, yes.
Okay, and then as that goes, then we can revisit in 90 days. He's saying if it shows that there's a need.
That's fine.
Is that okay?
Yes, okay.
I'm amenable to
Would
that.
you like to change your
Yeah,
motion?
I'd offer those as conditions, Mr. President. Madam President, rather.
As conditions.
as conditions, and so I yield to Council Knight's motion. I think the petitioner will accept that, so I think it could be something we can work on, then revisit again as you need to.
Okay.
So on the motion of Counselor Knight to approve the petition with a 90-day review under the conditions of delivery only from 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. Monday through Thursday,
Sunday through Thursday,
Sunday through Thursday, and then Friday and Saturday.
open till 2.
Open till 2 for walk-in customers.
Right.
Okay.
That's
Do you have
that's
that
now Council Knight's motion.
Yes,
Yeah,
correct.
and
yeah. And second by Counselor
Second,
Scarpelli.
right.
Any further discussion, comments? Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Vice President Barris.
Yes.
Council Carviallo. Yes. Council Collins.
Yes.
Council Knight.
Yes.
Council Scarpelli.
Yes,
Council Sang.
Yes.
President Morrell.
Yes, 7 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative. The motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Melgar. Motions, orders, and resolutions, 22-080, offered by Counselor Carviallo. Be it resolved that the Medford City Council reappoint Fred Lasky as the council's appointment to the Community Garden Commission. Mr. Lasky's appointment has expired, and his experience and commitment to the commission would be welcomed for another term. Counselor Carviallo.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, before we start, if I could wish my wife a happy birthday this evening. I'm sorry she's home alone with me here, but again, happy birthday to my wife.
Happy birthday, Carol.
Madam President, I think this speaks for itself, and I think everybody has a copy of Mr. Lasky's resume, again, which speaks for itself. Mr. Lasky is in the audience this evening. I think if we could hear from him, it would be great to hear him just give a little history on himself.
Do you
Fred?
want
Yeah.
to go first?
Yeah.
I think Counselor Sang, if you just want to.
Yeah, before we delve into the professional aspects of this, I just wanted to note that Mr. Lasky has been such an important person to our Medford community. As is with his time living here in Medford, I remember very fondly how Mrs. Lasky, who I had as my fourth grade elementary school teacher, brought Mr. Lasky to our class, and he talked to us about the MWRA, talked to us about his job, talked to us about the importance of caring about how we use water resources in our community. He even brought us water bottles, and so I'm very, very fond of those memories, and I think they really exemplify, they really show, they really epitomize how much of an influence, a positive influence Mr. Lasky has been for our community. He's really been there for our kids. He's really been there for our residents, and his work with the MWRA and with the different, with the gardening commission, with different commissions has really showed, I think, all of us how important of a person he is to Medford.
Thank you, Councilor Singh. Mr. Lasky? Just name and address for the record, please.
Frederick Lasky, 55 Summit Road, Medford, Mass, obviously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Justin. Who knew, right? No, he's a great kid, and you'll be a great city council. Proud of you. Several years ago, in its wisdom, the city of Medford created a garden commission. And with the idea of promoting community garden and the importance of gardening in the community of Medford. And I was fortunate to be one of the appointees, the city council's appointees. There were 4 other appointees who were appointed by the mayor. And frankly, they're a great group of people. They're hardworking. They're there through thick and thin, and really have a vision for this community and the importance of gardening. And since the inception of this commission, we've got the Winthrop Garden. We've got down at Tufts Park, down behind the Curtis School there. We're working closely with the Housing Authority on Willis, McNally Park. And frankly, a couple of our efforts didn't bear fruit in trying to locate gardens in some of the parks in the city because there was other pressures there from the athletic groups and people who didn't particularly want that in their neighborhood. But it's been a great success. And I saw Amanda Bowen here earlier on the TV. She's got her fingers in everything that's good in the city. Amanda's in and around it. And the group is a great group. And I'd like to serve another term if you started in your wisdom to reappoint me and keep up the effort and keep up the fight. And I also think that I should point that they also not only work to create the new gardens, they set up rules on how they should conduct themselves. We've raised a lot of money that's gone and funded the parks, and they take it to the educational side too, the importance of food and being able to sustain food and the issues around the food desert and things like that, the food pantries around, provide them with good fresh vegetables and the importance of fresh vegetables in people's diets. So it's really a great group of people. And like I say, I'm proud and pleased to be part of it. So I don't know if you have any questions, concerns.
Thank you, Mr. Lasky. Any questions or comments from the council? From the public?
Madam President, if I may.
Councilor Knight?
Mr. Lasky, thank you for your service. I remember one of the first votes that I took as a city councilor was in support of your appointment to this position. I think you've done a great job here as well as at the MWRA. And it's without hesitation that I will support Councilor Caviello's recommendation this evening. Over the years, I've had the opportunity to work with you in various capacities, and you continue to put out a great product for the city of Medford. And your actions have always spoken louder than your words, and your track record is proven. So thank you very much for all you do for the community. I'm happy to stand beside you and support you this evening.
Thank you, Councilor Knight. So on the motion of Councilor Caraviallo
Council President?
yes, Councilor Scarpelli.
Thank you. Again, just to be redundant, because you deserve it, I think that the Lasky family in general, what you always give back to the community, not only that in your professional life, you've always looked out for Medford, Mr. Lasky, and it's something that we're grateful for. And having, your better half working with our children, and you always see Mrs. Lasky in the garden. I always remember seeing Mrs. Lasky at the McGlynn garden, and the pride and joy of that area. So I think that having you reappointed would just keep this moving forward in a positive way, and I support Councilor Caviello's motion as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor
I
Scarpelli.
actually at one point was a youth soccer coach at his behest. So anyway, it's a small town.
It is.
Any further comment on the motion of Councilor Carviallo to reappoint Fred Lasky to the Community Garden Commission, seconded by Vice President Bears. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Vice President Bears.
Yes.
Council Carviallo.
Yes.
Council Collins.
Yes.
Council Knight.
Yes.
Council Scarpelli.
Yes.
Council Singh.
Yes.
President Morrell.
Yes, 7 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, the motion passes. Congratulations, Mr. Lasky. 22-081, offered by Councilor Scarpelli. Be it resolved that the Medford City Council express our sincere condolences to the family of William F. Billy Huckins Jr. on his recent passing. Councilor Scarpelli.
President who always gave back to our country, former Navy vet, a member of the Knights of Columbus, and strong family.
And Mr. Huckings raised Debbie, John, Bobby, and Laura, and just wanted to reach out and give a moment of silence for Mr. Huckings' passing, and wish their family deepest and sincere condolences. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Scarpelli. Any other councilors? On the motion of Councilor Scarpelli? Please rise for a moment of silence. Clerk, if you could please call the roll.
Vice President Bears.
Yes.
Council Carviallo.
Yes.
Council Collins.
Yes.
Council Knight.
Yes.
Council Scarpelli.
Yes.
Council Singh.
Yes.
President Morrell.
Yes, 7 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, the motion passes. 22-082, offered by Councilor Singh and Councilor Collins. Whereas residential streets between Main Street and Mystic Avenue, such as but not limited to Bonner Ave, Hancock Avenue, Billings Avenue, Golden Avenue, and Alexander Avenue are often used as cut-through streets to bypass Harbor Street traffic. And whereas residents in South Medford have raised questions and concerns about the speed of traffic, pedestrian safety, the quality of residential streets, and the city's temporary and permanent solutions. And whereas mobile applications like Waze have exacerbated these issues, be it resolved that the Medford City Council investigate the questions, concerns, and issues listed above and ask the acting Commissioner of Public Works and the traffic engineer for an update on strategies to address these issues. And be it further resolved that the Medford City Council asks the Department of Public Works and the Engineering Department to consider repaving dilapidated residential streets used extensively by commuters to bypass Harvard Street traffic, adding do not block intersection signage and do not block the box road paints to the Bonner Main intersection, and implementing strategies to lessen traffic buildup at the intersection of Main Street and Harvard Street. Be it further resolved by the Medford City Council that this discussion be referred to the Subcommittee on Public Works and Utilities for further discussion with the Department of Public Works and Engineering Department heads. Councilor Singh.
Thank you so much, President Merrill. So this resolution is something that I was proud to submit with my fellow South Medford counselor, Councilor Kit Collins. This is when I knocked on doors in this neighborhood and in my home neighborhood, this was something that came up basically at every single door. I mean, I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that the issue salience was off the records. It was off the charts. When you walk down these cut-through streets, as they're called, you realize how fast the cars go down them and how heavy the traffic is during rush hour. And this poses a threat to, say the safety of the residents in those neighborhoods when it comes to walking, something as simple as walking across the street. And it actually is a problem for accessibility as well. So on the matters of pedestrian safety, when it comes to speed, when it comes to just the mere quality of these streets, I think that this is a super important issue for a neighborhood that's been a little bit overlooked over the last few years. The proposals I've suggested the city look at are things that neighbors have written to me in emails in recent weeks, asking us to explore. They might not be the solutions, but I think it's worth having our city look into some of the proposals that our neighbors have brought up.
Thank you, Counselor Singh. Counselor Collins.
Thank you. And thank you, Councillor Singh, for outlining, just how recurrent this issue is in some of the neighborhoods that we, and I'm sure many other councillors also frequent. Obviously, our engineering department and our DPW have a full queue of traffic mitigation and repaving projects that they're actively working on. We're lucky to have them on the case. Still, the area that we've described is a very pernicious one for traffic jams, as Councillor Singh already touched on. Creates buildups at every peak hour, spills over onto these cut-through streets like Bonner Avenue and others, degrades the road surfaces, increases air pollution for the residents of these neighboring streets, and creates very dangerous driving situations like blind turns, impatient behavior behind the wheel. So obviously, there's no magical solutions, but looking forward to getting some updates from our city staff on what's currently going on to address these issues and hopefully explore what more can be done.
Thank you, Counselor Collins. Counselor Carviallo.
Thank you, Madam President. I think, the two councils brought up is probably the biggest factor of this is Waze and Google Maps and all these things. Anybody that lives off of a main road suffers from this. I suffer from where I live. I parallel Route 16 and High Street. And you talk to people in other communities, no matter where you go, this is a problem everywhere. And the other problem is, it's not so much the people driving, but you've got a major influx of commercial traffic on these streets, from the Amazon drivers, the food delivery driver. I mean, there's so much more commercial traffic on these streets than there's ever been before. And I think that's a giant part of this problem too. And these are people that don't live in the community, have no regard for going up and down streets. They park anywhere, cause traffic jams, and so on. The answer to this is, I don't know if you can ever have an answer to this. We can't block people from going down public streets. It was tried in another community, and some residents challenged it, and they made them take all the signs down because these are streets that are paid for with public funds. Do we have enough policemen to patrol these streets? No, we don't. I mean, we just can't have and I say, listen, I know this, I've lived in this neighborhood, but I'm familiar with it. At that 5 o'clock, that 4 or 5 o'clock rush hour, when Mr. Gav gets back down to Somerville and Main Street gets backed up, and then everybody goes down Willis Ave and they're banging up and down the streets. The answer is we don't know. I mean, but I say, I think, the Waze and all these driving apps are probably the biggest problem. Again, God forbid someone sits at a light for, an extra 2 minutes. If you take the right there, you'll pick up 30 seconds and you go everywhere. So I applaud them for bringing these to the council. The answer is, I don't know if there is ever an answer with all the traffic, and especially the commercial traffic, which we've never ever had before with the advent of all these, food delivery service, Amazon and FedEx and UPS, and they're all hiring private drivers too to go around driving stuff. So again, it's just I think it's gotten worse during the pandemic because everybody stayed home and now you get the groceries delivered. So I think this has been, over the last 2 years, it's gotten worse than it's ever been. So again, I welcome any help that these neighbors, and it's not just these neighbors, it's neighbors throughout this whole community that live off of a main road.
Thank you, Counselor Carviallo. Vice President Bears.
Thank you, Madam President. Yeah, I just wanted to add, as someone who does move through the area and spend some time in the area, I do think some of these don't block the box proposals would be helpful, because you just have people sitting, I think you have Bonner and Main here, but to be honest, we should probably have one at Main and Harvard and maybe define turning lanes. And I mean, that intersection gets really rough with people, people turning left and then people going around them. And then God forbid there's someone in the intersection, that can cause accidents, as well as Harvard. And I can't think of the other street right now, but it's about halfway between Mystic and Harvard and Main and Harvard. It's the cross street at Crossing Harvard. For some reason I'm blanking. It might be, but yeah, so, I think those interventions would be helpful just to not have the traffic backup also block intersections, which causes backups into the neighborhoods even further. Thank you for putting this forward.
Thank you, Vice President Barris. Name and address for the record, please.
Anthony D'Antonio, 24 Hicks Avenue. Justin, Councilor Sam, I'm glad you brought this up. What I'd like to tell you, what I'd like you to do is spend some time down there. And I know you're in school, so you may conflict with your schedule, but you go down to Willis, Hicks Ave, East Albion Street. Go when the kids are getting there to school, okay? Just take a camera with you and watch what happens. The police are there trying to direct the children for their safety. People don't even stop at the stop sign. Police can't go after these people all the time because they're too busy watching the kids. The signage is like spaghetti. It's all over the place. It's not right. They did a remake of the circle down by the school to complete. It's not right. The traffic engineer designed it. Don't know how he came up with that solution, but it's not working. Another problem is by the Collect Bakery. You cannot come out from Bow Street or Albion Street and have a clear view of the cars coming up from the south side of Main Street. And there's a lot of kids that cross there in the morning. And the whole thing that has to be done is it has to be enforcement, because right now the police are too busy doing things, okay? And people say, well, what do they do? Well, they do a lot, okay? But what's more important is to get these things and get these people and condition them not to take these streets, okay? Or to put some signage up there. So it's dangerous. I mean, I can hear them coming up from Willis Avenue. They got these low riders flying down the street there, and they're popping in the music and everything. And there's kids trying to cross the street. So let's do this before somebody gets killed down there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. D'Antonio. I see Miranda Briseno with their hand up on Zoom. Miranda, name and address for the record, please.
Miranda Briseno, 2 Taylor Street. Yeah, so I just wanted to echo the concerns. I don't live in South Medford, but I've both walked and driven and biked through it enough to know what these problems look like. And while I support signs as an interim approach, the best way to slow cars down, whether or not they're cutting through streets, is to simply redesign our streets to be a lot safer. We can be narrowing lanes, putting speed humps, speed tables onto these residential streets to really force drivers to go slower. And similarly, relying on enforcement really can backfire and be really unsafe for a lot of communities. So the best kind of enforcement that we as a community can invest in is better designed streets. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Briseno. Hillary Klein, I see your hand up on Zoom. Unmute you. Name and address for the record, please.
Hello, Hillary Klein, 37 Fells Avenue. I'm a member of Walk Medford, so here talking to that group tonight. Just wanted to confirm the idea that things are not going well right now out there. There's a crisis nationwide. The last year has seen an enormous rise in fatalities of pedestrians and traffic deaths in general. There's been a 50% rise in pedestrian deaths over the last 10 years nationwide. So there definitely is a crisis in people driving too fast, recklessly. And so we do need to deal with that here in Medford. I just want to echo what Miranda just said. We do have a complete streets policy in Medford that Mayor Burke signed on to about 5 years ago. And I think the most important thing for people to understand is that by redesigning our streets and also using a lot of low cost, high impact interventions like paint. I actually just worked with Todd Blake to get 3 pedestrian crossing signs on Salem Street that are sitting in the middle of the street. And immediately the owner of Fior Italy asked if he could get one too. So I was pretty pleased to see that there was a good reaction among the business owners there to something like that. But all that does is it's a couple $100 sign that sits in the middle of the road and forces drivers to kind of go around it a little bit, so they can't just speed down Salem as much as they have been in the past. Things like that, paint on corners, can really have a huge effect for not much money. But in general, our city council and our mayor just need to support and fund our excellent traffic engineers. We now have 2 in the city, and they're ready to go with lots of ideas and plans, but we do need to make sure that we're funding these things as a city if we really want to make real change to the way drivers go through Medford. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Klein. Martha Andrus, the name and address for the record, please.
Yeah, hi. Thank you, Nicole. I'm Martha Andrus. I live at 45 Kilgore Avenue in Medford. I'm also Walk Medford, and I'm also the Energy and Environment Committee, a member of that committee. And it is Medford has a lot of roads. It has a lot of state roads. We have a lot of traffic, and yet we're trying to be a livable community. We have to remember that and do absolutely everything we can. The Complete Streets program has been very successful in the areas where it's been funded. Safe routes to schools improvements, for example. We need so much more of it. I mean, this area between Mystic Ave and, in South Medford is just really crying for better complete streets design. And we need to work with our engineers. We also need to bear in mind that people need the option of being able to walk places. And they need the option to be able to take buses and transit. And we need to think beyond the car. Our lives are, way too wrapped around the car, and it does affect our walkability and our livability as a city. So thank you for considering this resolution.
Thank you, Ms. Andrus. Vice President Bears.
Thank you, Madam President, and, definitely completely agree with many of our commenters. And, I think I've said this a few times in the past session, that I will occasionally be a broken record, but this is another broken record moment. The backlog of repair. So just bringing up current streets and sidewalks to good condition in their current design is $170 million. The annual budget of this city is $190 million, right? And I believe we're looking at $1 million or $2 million in that budget that's dedicated to street and sidewalk repair every year. So that's what, 70, 80 years we'll maybe get there. And we all know that the rate of deterioration of streets and sidewalks is much faster. So we're actually never going to get there with current levels of investment. The city, because of state laws, is drastically underfunded. I think we seriously, once again, need to look at, as part of a solution to a variety of problems, something like a debt exclusion to address design issues, roads and sidewalks. If we're talking about $170 million backlog, we're just never going to get there with the revenues we have now. The federal money that's coming in for infrastructure and ARPA still isn't going to get us there. And maybe it'll make a dent. Maybe it'll make a $10 or $20 million dent. We don't know exactly what the mayor's proposing around the use of that money yet. But, essentially, if we stay status quo with the money that we have now, we're going to have poorly designed streets with potholes and sidewalks that no one can walk on. And if that's a decision that the community wants to live with, then that's a decision that they can live with. But I do think it's our obligation as leaders of this community to at least ask the community and the voters what kind of community they want to live in. And without new revenue, we are not going to solve this problem. It will never be solved. So until someone, and again, when it comes to funding, this city council under our current form of government, we cannot initiate appropriations. We can only cut. We can only say no or cut. So until the leadership of this community wants to put a proposal before this council, maybe for a bond issue or before the voters for a debt exclusion, basically the answer I can give you is, unless we get a grant from the state, which we did on, for some of the safe routes at the Roberts and the safe routes at the Brooks, we will not be able to solve this problem. So it is certainly a funding problem. And status quo on it means that we're going to continue to have streets and sidewalks that are poorly designed and unsafe. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Barris. Any further discussion? On the motion of Counselor Sang and Counselor Collins, seconded by Counselor Carviallo. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Vice President Barris.
Yes.
Council Carviallo.
Yes.
Council Collins.
Yes.
Council Knight. Council Knight.
You can see him. I don't know if he lost privileges.
Yes.
I just-
Thank you. Council Scarpelli.
Yes.
Council Sang.
Yes.
President Morrell.
Yes, 7 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, the motion passes. 22-083 offered by Counselor Sang. Whereas the 2020 Massachusetts Uniform Citation Data Analysis Report, parentheses, the report, a project supported by the Massachusetts Executive Office of Public Safety and Security, suggests that there is a statistically significant correlation between race/ethnicity and stop outcomes in Medford, where Black and Hispanic individuals are more likely to receive criminal citations or be arrested, and Hispanic individuals are less likely to receive written warnings. And whereas the report states that there may be a multitude of explanations for these disparities and how bias may be one among these many explanations. And whereas the report strongly encourages reflection and conversation about the potential causes of these disparities to build and maintain community trust, which is paramount to our public safety. Be it resolved that the Medford City Council requests that the Chief of Police investigate potential causes of stop outcome disparities and report back to the City Council on his findings. And be it further resolved that the Medford City Council ask the Medford Police Department to publish data on all motor vehicle stops, outcomes of searches, triggering offenses, and the duration of stops, the data requested by researchers behind the report, and post this data on its website. And be it further resolved that the Medford City Council ask the Medford Police Department to consider holding a community forum on traffic stop issues in order to deepen community trust and public safety as recommended by the report. Counselor Sang.
Thank you, President Morrell. So the context behind this resolution is this 2020 Massachusetts Uniform Citation Data Analysis Report, which is a super long name, so that's why I'll call it the report. This is a project that the state government or the state government put out there. You know, they found researchers from, I believe, Salem State and Framingham State to comb through data from almost every single municipality in Massachusetts to look at, you know, what is the relationship between race and ethnicity and the frequency of traffic stops, and the outcome of traffic stops. And what this report found was that in Medford, there's no statistically significant correlation between race and stops, right? But there is a statistically significant relationship between race and stop outcomes. And this report is very clear that this is not about blame. It's not about labeling people as racist or anything. This is about this race could just bias could be one of many, many, many reasons for why this is the case. But what it does say is that there is a reason. There must be a reason why Black and Hispanic individuals are subject to different traffic stop outcomes. And that this is not something that we can just say is a coincidence. It's not something that we can put down to chance. It is something that actually has a cause. And so this resolution is really about public safety. It's really about building trust in our law enforcement, building trust in our city government to do what's right and to do what's fair for everyone. It's no secret that that police and race are sensitive issues. They have been sensitive issues, especially in the last 2 years. And part of how we should move forward as a community and how this report, this nonpartisan report puts it is that we need to build trust in our government again. We need to rebuild that trust. We need to rebuild trust in our law enforcement. And the only way to do that is to be honest to have an honest conversation about this data and to have an honest conversation about possible explanations for these disparities. And so again, this is not about placing blame. This is not about labeling people names or saying that something is necessarily bad. This is about addressing this statistically significant data point and in taking the state's advice and how we should move forward and make our community safer.
Thank you, Counselor Singh. Counselor Carviallo.
Thank you, Madam President. On this paper here, I don't hear the police department getting called. I mean, are we getting calls about people being stopped of racism? I haven't heard that from the chief or any of the police
Point
officers.
of information. It's not about stops. It's about the outcomes in stops. So it's not about the stops themselves.
You know, not everything that happens in this community is race related. Sorry to say that. And that's what this is saying, that policemen are only pulling over black and Hispanic people. They
It's
don't
not
do that.
at all what it's saying.
Yeah, it's nothing close. It's actually the opposite of what this is saying.
It is.
It's
Again,
Counselor Carviallo has the floor.
have the floor. Thank you. Thank you. The chief here, under this new chief, he's trained these officers very well in regards of how they operated in the past. Again, these may happen in other communities. I'm not saying that they don't happen. But I'm not hearing stories of our policemen just pulling people over randomly. Again, the police, they do have data. They have hired data, people that collect data and all these things. I don't know. I don't know, Counsel. I think we're just going. I think we're going on fishing expeditions when we do these type of things.
Thank you, Counselor Carviallo. Counselor Collins.
Thank you. Was Vice President Bears first?
I saw you.
No? Okay, great, thank you. Well, thank you, Counselor Singh, for putting this forward. Thank you for the comments so far. And I just feel the need to say off the top, I think, given the fact that this is data that's been reported by the state, I think it's a little unfair to call it a fishing expedition when this is data that, is now out in the open. It's not something that Medford requested. It's just something that we have access to. And to me, since this is out there, it's a state report, greater transparency and dialogue around the issue can only be positive for the whole community. Just having the data and not following up on it doesn't help anybody. So I'm encouraged that the report recommends reflection and conversation as about the potential causes of these disparities, and gives us a lot of opportunities. It's the opportunity for the public to follow up on a concerning issue, demonstrated in the data and get more insight. It's the opportunity for our city to investigate and better learn what is the cause of the patterns. As Councillor Singh said, it's not about blame, it's about asking what's behind this data, going with an open mind and saying, what's behind it? And it's an opportunity for the MPD to share its perspective, share what goes into its work. I completely agree with you. I know there's been a lot of new hires. I've heard from the chief firsthand, how dedicated he is to really comprehensive training. And we know that that's genuine. And I think it would be great to have a forum to share that with more of the community. So, to me, building and improving ties between the MPD and the community, that's an existing stated goal that I've heard from many people within the administration. And I think that, a conversation like the report recommends is walking the talk, following up on the issue, holding a forum. I really do think it could be a win-win because at the end of the day, building trust keeps the community safer, and it also keeps our public safety professionals safer on the job as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Collins. Vice President Bears.
Thank you, Madam President. What this resolution cites is a state report showing that these data are true, that the statistically significant difference and disparities in stop outcomes are happening. What this resolution asks us to do is to figure out why. And I would guess that this chief, given his decisions, given his role to reform the Medford Police Department, given the statements and stated goals of our police department, that if this resolution were to go before the chief, he would be concerned. He would want to know the answer to why these facts are these facts. And I think that it's a good role of this council to present information to our department heads when that information comes before us, And, if they haven't seen it before, they can report back to us and say, that was concerning information. This is the review that we did. These are the reasons we found. And maybe that reason, we don't know those reasons. We can't say what the reason is until there's an investigation that has happened. So, it's not a fishing expedition when there are facts on the table that indicate that there's a question as to why there's a statistically significant correlation between race and ethnicity and stop outcomes in Medford. That doesn't mean we know why there's a statistically significant correlation. And if we want to, as Councilor Marks would say, bury our heads in the sand and not find out the answers to our questions, we're more than welcome to do that. I think the chief and the city and this council and the people of Medford would like to know why the data are the way they are. And I look forward to the explanation heretofore. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Barris. Counselor Scarpelli.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you for all of your comments. I think that's important. I can completely understand why Council Sang would like to see this. I know that I think that in totality, what this resolution says is that let's ask the chief to gather data on Medford so we can educatedly look into this, because I've also, after reading this, I've contacted a few other colleagues in neighboring communities that had similar concerns. And what was the outcome of those concerns were totally against what everybody was saying, that it was really race related in the sense that how those numbers were attributed, how they were counted, how it was looked at, that, that Medford looks at this as racial disparity. But I think the numbers will show with what we're asking for, that the chief sit down and look into this process and look at the true data for Medford, not the state, because the state's going to show a drastic agreement with what we're saying, because there's definitely an issue in the state. But when you're talking about more Medford, I think that I welcome the process that our chief looks into the data a little bit with the magnifying glass to give us the true numbers, because I also understand that what Councilor Caraviallo is saying, in the sense that I was getting the same phone call saying, why is Councilor Sang saying that, our police are racist or they're being stopped, and that the presumption of, how you interpret the resolution is how people are going to read it. Be it further resolved, the Medford Police Department consider holding a community forum on traffic stop issues in order to deepen community trust and public safety as recommended by the report. So I think that you're on the right track, but I think before we leap to anything negative or connotations, I think that we ask the chief to come in and do a data-driven report that states what's going on in Medford, because I don't disagree. The numbers are going to show statewide where you're getting what these traffic stops. There is a concern, but I also will think that we'll have a better understanding when the police department, the traffic department, does a deeper study in the data in Medford. So I just, like I said, no one's questioning, I think that unfortunately there's racism everywhere, and there are good and there are bad everywhere. And this is the problem. And I want to make sure that we look at this in totality, that I think we really ask the chief to come in to find these numbers before we can all jump and leap to conclusions that, yes, our police force is racist, which isn't what you're saying. And I know that. So, but at the same time, it's also give us a true indication of what our method stops have been, not just for this year, because you could look at 1 year and get an understanding, but I think we have to look at method stops over a 3 to 5 year period. I think that'll help. And listen, if that unearths something that's alarming to this council, I think we move forward in a more aggressive manner. But until that time, I think, let's ask the chief to do his due diligence. I would recommend that. I know it's part of the motion, but I just reiterate that motion, that we ask the chief to give us more data on traffic stops, not just for this year, maybe going back 2 or 3 years. Because I know that what was said in different communities, the numbers were a little skewed because last year, during the pandemic year, you had a comparison to 800 stops in one community that previous years, they had 3,200 stops. So it'd be interesting to see that. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Scarpelli. Councilor Scarpelli, did you have your hand up again? Vice President Bears.
Thank you, Madam President, and I appreciate the comments of my fellow councilors. I just want to, just for clarity's sake, this report uses data that our police department sends to the state. So this report is Medford specific. Now it's saying the data shows there's a disparity, but it doesn't indicate what the reason is, right? And I think that's, no one here is saying we know why there's a disparity. And all we know is that in Medford specifically, there's a statistically significant correlation. And I think all we're asking is to say, since we have that data that shows in Medford and, fairness to you on the pandemic year and data collection, and we all know how much of a mess the census was and everything else, right? So maybe the data is skewed for 2020, but I do believe this is a relatively new report, from the state. And all we're saying is, all this resolution is saying is, if the data shows that there's a correlation between those two things, let's find out why. No one is intending to say that we know why, or that we're putting a motivation or a rationale or a reason behind that. But, as I said before, I think all of us in this room would benefit from the answer as to why. And if the answer as to why is data collection was skewed, or, this other reason, then that's important for us to know too, because it actually bolsters the case, right, around community trust and around the fact that things are better. And so that's, I think, where this is trying to go and why I support it.
Thank you, Vice President Bears. Councilor Scarpelli.
And I shared the sentiments of Council Bears, because like I said, I reached out to colleagues in different communities that are going through a similar resolution and concerns and issues. And what was brought back to me were the concerns of the state numbers and how it was represented. So I think that's why having the chief come in and giving us true data, what's happening in Medford with what we're looking at, which is what you're asking the resolution. I think it's important to get that data. And numbers, the data doesn't lie. That's one thing about working in a community like Somerville and having Somerstat tell you what you're doing right and wrong every day. The data drives a lot of what is the true definition of what's happening. So like I said, all I'm saying is having the chief, giving him the information, asking him to compile that information for what we're looking for in Medford, not for what's been questionable in other communities, but the numbers that came from the state that are a little skewed. So we're both saying the same thing. So
Just, if I may, just to quickly further add, this was pursuant to the acts of 2019. So it is a new state report. I think they're taking data that we're generating here. And even what you're asking for is, if we're generating that data and sending it to the state, why not put it on the city website too, right? We already created it, we already have it. So, it's a new thing from the state. And I also know that this police department is doing a lot right now to adapt to changing state law. And that was a big focus of a recent meeting I had with the chief. So I'm hopeful that this is just this can be another piece of that process.
Thank you, councilors. I know we have a number of residents who'd like to speak. Ms. Diaz, name and address for the record, please.
I think it's Counselor Sang. I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with your name yet. I would have to pick up a little bit on Counselor Carviallo's comment here and a couple of things that I was reading through. It is unusual that the part of the report that was taken out regarding this data analysis report has the word bias in it. No other causes or reasonable explanations are mentioned in this. I really tend to think, because and you can think about this for a second, some people are next to me, well, I'm kind of foggy some days anyway, next to me at a red light for 3 or 4 minutes. They could pass me and someone could say to me, did you have a good look at the person beside you? He just went speeding down the street. I would never know. I'm sure half of you we answered the same way that I do. I finally myself believing in some of these analysis reports on traffic. I believe about 40%, because in that light of being human, I hardly think that police officers, especially the ones that I've known for many years in Medford, can spot somebody speeding or going through a red light, they're 2 blocks away, they really know what that driver looks like, their face and the color of their skin with the mask on and everything sometimes. So I have very little faith in a lot of this. Secondly, I think what they should be doing before going into a report like this regarding bias is have the police chief present a report of what is the most common cause of traffic stop, number one, because that's okay. And also any type of ticket violations that they have coming during the last few years, because I'm more concerned with the safety of the community right now. I think that should be attacked first, and then going into maybe other data that has been presented. Okay, and then even with that data, I think this becomes more some of the cause. If there are some people, not even the Haitians or anyone else mentioned here, people who are driving maybe even without licenses. So it's a big can of worms. So I think this type of report needs to be looked at after we are presented with the most stops and the reasons for those stops, because I hardly think police officers can see anyone, especially at night. Friday night and Saturday night. I'm also interested to know the times of day when most stops are done. This wouldn't involve state police, although they are here. I see them stopping a lot. This would be Medford. So I would really go, I think you went through the back door. I think maybe the other issues are much more important to community safety to spend some of your time on right now, and then go through this problem and see if there's type of safety connection after that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. ASO.
Madam President, point of information.
Vice President Barris.
Just wanted to add, and I think Councillor Sang presented this when he introduced it. I think one of the good news pieces here is the report said that there is no statistically significant correlation between stops themselves and race, which goes exactly to your point. It's not that people are seeing certain people and pulling them over for a reason of race. It specifically says that that's not happening at Medford. It's the outcome after the fact that there's data that shows that there's something to ask a question about. So I think, there's actually good news in the report, which is it proves what people have been saying is that people aren't being pulled over for any reasons of race or bias. And I think, I'll stop there.
Thank you, Vice President Barris. We have a number of residents on Zoom who would like to speak. Bill Giglio, name and address for the record, please.
Hi, Bill Giglio, Winthrop Street. So first of all, I'd like to say congratulations, Nicole, for the birth of your baby. Congratulations. So I like to, on some of these columns that I'm looking at right now, you have a warning, civil, criminal, and arrest. Under the civil, it seems to be pretty much equal, I would say. Civil, I would almost say, is like getting pulled over and a cop saying, getting pulled over, pulling a red light, maybe him saying go, or just getting a simple traffic stop, ticket for blowing a red light. Now, under the criminal, where it does seem to shift a little bit, now, if there's something criminal going on, let's just say like there's no, they don't have a license, they don't have insurance, they don't have this or that, wouldn't you want our police officers who we trust to do their job to, to hand out a ticket? It may bring up that percentage, yeah, but maybe they don't have their license, maybe they were texting and driving, maybe they don't have, insurance or whatever the case may be, what would make it a criminal offense, not a civil offense. And as far as the arrest side goes, I'm always happy if someone is arrested that should be arrested. Now, I personally, I don't think that just arresting someone just because they're Hispanic. I see that's the highest number. Whites, Asian Americans, and blacks are obviously low. A criminal application could be even, just like an unlicensed. But let's just say somebody is breaking the law, like I'm talking breaking the law, which is an arrestable offense, I would almost think we should be happy that that they are being arrested and they're being taken away off the road, whether it be for drunk driving, whether it be for, whatever, driving intoxicated, whether it's on marijuana or something, or even texting and driving, which they almost consider as drunk driving now because it's causing a distraction. So I'm just curious. Now, if you do get a report from the chief, is he allowed to even say what the arrests were? Are we just, oh, do we just have to go by, oh my goodness, look at this, Hispanics, 20% being arrested? Will we be able to see why anyone was arrested? Because other than that, I see like on the civil, like I said, on the civil side, everything seems to be about the same. Criminal is, like I said, that's, you know, a criminal could be a multitude of things, which I would say warrants a criminal. And an arrest is an arrest, and what, and you know what the arrest is for. Would that type of data be available? And is that what you go? And is that what you? And is that what you're going for? You're going for, let's just say, let's put out there why they were being arrested, why someone was arrested.
I think it would be at the behest of the chief, what he puts together, is my understanding.
I mean, one of the points in this resolution is the words triggering offenses. I mean, the report tells us that we really, in order to dig into these numbers and to explain these statistical relationships, we have to consider triggering offenses as one of the possible explanations, right? So it totally, and this report is really clear. There are many outcomes in this world where this is not actually about bias, but we, and that is exactly why we need to release more data. That's exactly why we need to publish more data, and make it transparent and open. And when it comes to the word bias, this is how the report itself was written. I've actually modified the language of the report to be more, I think, representative of how I think of the good character of the people working for our city, and to make it less hostile and to make it more reasonable. But I'll leave it there. A lot of the skepticism, I think, of this resolution is actually just resolved within the resolution itself. And I think it's important. I think it's important to keep in mind that the report is actually good news if we're just looking at people being stopped, because there is no statistical correlation between, there's no statistically significant relationship between the race of people being stopped in Medford and the traffic stops themselves. It's more about the outcome, right? And you know, it's totally possible that triggering offenses could be the reason why, but that's exactly why we need to ask the police chief to dig into the data, as Councillor Bears, as Councillor Scarpelli have said, in order to give us the transparency and give us that confidence in our own city's functioning.
Thank you, Councillor Sang. Thank you, Mr. Higo. Mr. D'Antonio, we have a few people on Zoom, so I just don't want you to stand.
Great.
I'll get to you after we get to that, but I just don't want you to stand there forever. Ellery Klein, name and address for the record, please.
Ellery Klein, 37 Fells Avenue. I'm talking on behalf of Walk Medford. I just would love to make the point that so often in these conversations, something that's lost is that recently it's becoming more evident that traffic stops and enforcement often have very little effect on road safety and people's behavior on the roads. In July 2021, the Journal of Trauma and Acute Care Surgery medical journal, analyzed 161 million traffic stops across, I think it was like 30 something states, and found absolutely no association with reduced road fatalities. They did caution that this was like highway stops, but there's other studies that are kind of finding the same thing. So when we're having this conversation, it's worth thinking about, once again, relying on traffic enforcement to make drivers behave better on the road is often a failing mission. And if we think more comprehensively and work and fund on road design and traffic calming through actual the way our built environment operates, we're going to find a lot more success in the long run. So I just wanted to make sure that thought is out there as we're looking at this greater question of whether or not we should be depending on the police to try to make our roads safer to begin with. Because the studies are showing that it's not really as effective as is popularly perceived in people's minds. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Klein. Miranda Briseno, name and address for the record, please.
Miranda Briseno, 2 Taylor Street. Just want to, again,
echo what Ellery stated, and similar to what Councilor Singh, Collins, and Bears have stated, the state has already has been provided to us by the state. And so utilizing this data would allow us to understand why that significant difference exists in traffic stops for our Black and Latino neighbors. And to bring this back to the issue discussed on South Medford and traffic concerns, the primary way the general public interacts with law enforcement is through traffic stops. And as this data from the state is already showing, there are disproportionate stops for our Black and Latino neighbors. Data in communities across the country has shown that our Black and Latino neighbors are at disproportionate risk of dying through their interactions with law enforcement. In addition, if you overlay old redlining maps that show high disinvestment and neglect in primarily Black and immigrant neighborhoods with where current traffic fatalities and high traffic concern areas are, these are the same neighborhoods. Similarly, more data from the Massachusetts Department of Public Health has shown that as pedestrians, Black residents of Massachusetts are more than 4 times likely than white residents to visit the emergency department as a result of being hit by a vehicle. In addition, nationwide data has shown the disproportionate risk that Black residents face to being a traffic fatality than white residents. So at the end of the day, if we're looking to keep our community safe, both from the negative consequences of high volume car traffic, we can also be addressing the true safety concerns that Black, Brown, and other marginalized communities have when interacting with law enforcement by investing more than we are now into safer street design. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Briseño. Eitan Gleiner, name and address for the record, please.
Hi, my name's Eitan Gleinert. I live at 374 Winthrop Street. I just want to voice my support for this proposal. I think it's a really good one. I think it's a sign of a really healthy society and a really healthy police department that when they get news that something seems off, that there's a report that's done by the state that says that things don't look quite right, that they go and investigate that and they try to figure out what's going on and get to the root cause of that. And I welcome this resolution and I hope that it gets adopted, and I hope that that we go in and look into this and figure out why these data show what they do.
Thank you, Mr. Gleiner. Mr. D'Antonio? Name and address for the record, please.
Anthony D'Antonio, 24 Hicks Avenue. Listen, one of the things I think people are not understanding is in the last 10 years, the increase of traffic that comes through the city of Medford. City of Medford is a cut-through city. They come from everywhere. You don't have the same problem in Winchester, okay? There's a lot of people that are working in the marketplace. That traffic is on the streets at all hours. 3 o'clock in the morning it starts. They're going to the markets. They're going everywhere for work, third shift, graveyard shifts, whatever. Okay, and I think it's unfair to draw a conclusion that because people are getting stopped, it has to do with their color or their appearance or whatever, because there's a lot of bad guys that get stopped. So what I would like, maybe before you people really get into this, I mean, that young lady that was on before with all the statistics can be skewed, okay? I have a master's in economics and we know how to do that. So in all these facts and figures, but I'm gonna ask maybe anybody in good faith, ask the chief if you can go on the ride along in the graveyard shift with the police officer, then come back here and tell me what's going on in the streets. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. D'Antonio. Vice President Bears?
Thank you. And that's exactly what this is. And just to read from the report, just to make Councilor Sang's point, it says the significant data indicates observed pattern in the table is real and not due to chance alone. And then the actual report says, this report serves as a starting point for further discussion on racial disparities in traffic enforcement in Massachusetts. As previously stated, statistical analyses of aggregate department level data can only identify disparities in law enforcement citizen interactions. There are a number of reasons why disparities may occur in law enforcement citizen interactions, and bias, both individual bias and institutional bias, is only one of the many causes of disparities. The overall goal of this study is to learn more about potential patterns of racial disparities in traffic stops for the purposes of providing an opportunity for reflection and understanding of the causes of these disparities and building or maintaining community trust, ultimately making us all safer. That's the language of this. I agree with Councilor saying that he actually was not as intentionally direct as the report was to make sure that there weren't misinterpretations, but yes, there still were misinterpretations. We're literally doing what everyone wants us to do here, which is to ask the chief for why to help us move from seeing disparities to understanding causes.
Thank you, Vice President Barris. Counselor Scarpelli.
And thank you, Council Bears, for bringing that up again, for the community at large that are having questions with this. Like I said, I talked to a few neighboring communities, and the truth of the matter is, it would be enlightening that when the chief does do a data dive with these concerns, I think we'll be pleasantly surprised with Medford and what our officers are doing. And so, you know, and I understand that these are the questions that were also put forth with different communities with this, that numbers might have been skewed in the state level. So that's why it's important that we get the numbers from the chief. That's why I'll support this, because again, the chief will look at Medford's numbers and get back to us and educate us. Now, if we find something that with Medford numbers that we have to now be cognizant and look forward to directing the chief where we need some support or assistance, that we change something that might be hurting our community, then we need to fix it. But I think that welcoming the data is going to be what we're looking for. I mean, I think we're all looking at the same thing. We all want to see the data, and you know, it's not for the gotcha game. It's just to get the numbers and let's go from there. So, and I think the chief will welcome it. If we know the chief, he loves this. He loves these type of issues where he'll answer these questions. He's never, from what I recall, that the chief has never shied away of questions like this. So I pose that in support. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Scarpelli. Ms. Diaz, name and address for the
Thank
record,
you.
please.
Sharon Giesso again, briefly, Mass Ave and Circuit Road, that I think a couple of us who were disparaging with some remarks look into this in a wider scope too, because we were a little older. Well, I'm probably 4 times your age. You can laugh under that mask at that if you want right now, because I can't see. There are other things added into the formula, not only time of day, et cetera, that the human element, you know, is not even admissible in some of this. And don't forget, we have technology now. Lots of these people are stopped because a policeman is called because somebody just went through a device, is that correct? Or a speed trap or something, and then they're called and then they go out. So they don't even have a clue of who they're chasing. So these are really touchy. I think social discussions are always good, especially if you're taking the police chief or something like that. It'd be interesting to see some of the statistics of what the reasons are for the stops. And then and you can go into the other reasons afterwards. But I'm just trying to let you know, because you're so much younger too, that you have to look at the whole picture before trusting one of these or some other reports. Thanks for your time, guys. Healthy New Year.
Thank you, Ms. Diaz. Councilor Sang.
And I think this resolution does ask us to take a very holistic and very open-minded view on this. And you know, again, that's why we ask about more transparent data. That's why we're asking about triggering offenses, why we're asking about duration of stops, et cetera, because, you know, I think it's important to go into this process with a holistic lens. I think most, if not all of us, are asking for the same thing, which is that, you know, the police chief just look into this, and I trust the police chief. I think the police chief would also be happy to do this. You know, I'll leave with I'll leave this with a metaphor. You know, when you walk into the doctor's office and the doctor sees something, asks you to get it checked out, you get it checked out because you trust the doctor, right? The science is clear. And you just, you know, it could be something, it could be nothing, but you trust the doctor because it could be something. And, you know, this very well could be nothing, but I think this is when we go see that specialist and we go get this checked out.
Thank you, Councilor Sang. Any further discussion? Councilor Collins.
Motion for approval.
On the motion of Councilor Sang, seconded by, on the motion of Councilor Collins, seconded by Vice President Bears. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Vice President Barris.
Yes.
Councilor Carviallo.
Yes.
Councilor Collins.
Yes.
Councilor Knight.
I've been seeing him pop in and out. He might be having
Yeah,
connection
maybe
issues.
have connection issues. I'm gonna go back to him just in case, but I'm gonna skip this. Councilor Scarpelli.
Yes.
Councilor Sang.
Yes.
President Morrell.
Yes.
And let me check Counselor Knight one more time. Just want to see if he's.
Okay.
Okay.
So
Did he indicate which way he's going to vote?
Okay, yeah, I've been seeing it popping it out. So 6 in the affirmative, 1 absent. The motion passes. 22-084 offered by Counselor
Madam
Singh.
President, I can offer a summary.
That would be great. Offered by Counselor Singh and Counselor Collins. Counselor Singh.
So this is a resolution that Haitian American community leaders actually reached out to me about putting on the agenda. Let me walk through it first and then talk a little bit more about that. Essentially, Metro Boston is home to the 3rd largest Haitian diaspora in our country. The Haitian American community has been so vital to Medford in terms of its contributions to our workforce, to the economy, and to the culture, a general culture of our city. The Census Bureau, I just looked this up right before I submitted this resolution, estimated in around 2019 that 7.9% of Medford's population was of Haitian descent. And so the immigration policy started during the Trump administration and continued under the Biden administration affect Medford disproportionately. When we look at what these policies are, the policies of deportation, and this section of the report actually goes into language from both political and civil rights leaders, civil liberties leaders as well. They cite our international our national law and international law, and saying that these Title 42 deportations are actually unconstitutional, illegal. And so this is a resolution of support, which I think is especially important during Black History Month, in support for our Haitian migrants who live in Medford. Support to make sure that they're not deported to a place where they barely know, to make sure that they're not deported to a place of political, social, and economic strife. And a statement of support saying that we are a place of refuge and that Medford is a safe place for each and every single one of our community members. I know this, I'm very well aware that this resolution may well not have a national impact, but I think that it's vital that we show our support for our Haitian neighbors. And so talking a little bit more about how this resolution came to be, I talked to Councillor Ruth C. Louisan in Boston, who's working on a coalition to build a coalition of communities to express their support for the Haitian community and to ask the Biden administration to consider reversing their this illegal immigration policy. I think it's important. I think it's vital for us to show that we are a place that's willing to accept and celebrate our diversity, and again to create public trust in our institutions with a population that's so important to our city's fabric. And if you will indulge me, I just wanted to send a short message to our Haitian American community here in Medford. I don't speak Haitian Creole, but I speak a little bit of French, and I will translate it for the record. Je veux que tout le monde, et en particulier la communauté haïtienne à Medford, sache que c'est important pour nous que Medford soit une ville où on se sent en sécurité et que Medford soit une ville accueillante. So what I said was, I want to make it known that to the whole world, and in particular our Haitian community here in Medford, that it's important for us that Medford is a city where we all feel safe, and that Medford is a city that's welcoming to all.
Thank you, Counselor Singh. Any further discussion?
President.
I think Counselor Collins, I apologize. Counselor Collins just had her hand up first. Counselor Collins.
Oh, thank you, Madam President. Well, I'm very impressed by Counselor Singh's French speaking, so hard to follow that, but I just want to amplify what Councillor Sang already said, and want to thank him for taking initiative on this resolution, as well as for liaising with the other Greater Boston elected officials that are connected to the Haitian community and this coalition, who've been making similar appeals to our federal administration. I would be really proud for us to use our voice as a council to advocate for a more just and fair and, legally compliant immigration system, instead of, seeing excuses be used to turn away people who came here in a time of need. And as stated in the resolution, Medford has very long served as a place of refuge for immigrants from many, many different places. And federal immigration policy impacts the ability of communities, welcoming communities like ours, to open our arms to new community members. And of course, it is very relevant that so many Medford residents are a part of the Haitian diaspora. Kind of anecdotally, one of the most memorable conversations that I had when I was out talking to voters last year was with a Haitian man in my neighborhood in South Medford, who, when I asked him what was on his mind with the city of Medford, said, "I have relatives who want to come and join me here, and because of our immigration policy, they can't." And I could see that it was a really heartbreaking issue. And it stuck with me more than most other conversations. So obviously it goes without saying that cities cannot directly affect federal immigration policy, but especially as representatives of a city with such a robust Haitian population, I think that the very least we can do is speak up, and to hope that with other local leaders across Greater Boston, Metro Boston speaking up as well, that these calls will accumulate and be heard. And, just to recognize that this policy is still affecting people in our community, even when it's left the front pages of major national newspapers. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Collins. Councillor Scarpelli.
I thank Councilor Sang for bringing this forward, but again, I'm going to stay with my vote. I support my Haitian community. I've done a lot for my Haitian community, but at the same time, I'll be voting no on this resolution for the fact that I'd like to see this council work closer with our Haitian community in Medford. And as I talked to a few of our Haitian leaders, it's ceremonial, but I'm done doing ceremonial votes, and I appreciate that. And I hope you can respect that. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Scarpelli. Ms. Diasto? Sorry, could you just name and address for the record, please?
Sharon Giesto from Mass
Thank you.
Ave Circuit Road. I have a good time, Council saying for sometimes conversing with some of my Haitian students on Francais, and they look, oh my goodness, now, one I even told one day that I was going to in French call his mama. Oh, you parlez, vous parlez, oui. So, but not a lot. It's wonderful. I get a chance to chat about food naturally and different customs. And I love the garb that people wear. I think it's wonderful. I'm just a little confused about some of the language that's in here. It says, first of all, I must admit, it says for many years that Medford has been looked upon as a city of refuge. I mean, that indicates that somebody flew to the city. Not all of them are coming here because they were harmed. Many of them are educated. I teach with them at the college. So I think if it should have been like a little corrected in that respect. And refuge also means from, an escape also. We're not a sanctuary city. I don't even know what that whole thing means anyway, but we're not legally or lawfully a sanctuary city. So that needs to be sort of dismissed out of the formula. Also, it says that you're going to seek help out of the law that still exists that would demand that all Haitian immigrants and migrants be deported. All people who are legally here are going to be deported. I don't quite understand that. I don't think is that misinformation? I'm sure it's not intentional. It's not, you can see our confusion a little bit on that. And more importantly, I think what we should be doing is maybe writing and asking that we're a city concerned with the problems in those countries, rather than pay and pay and pay and still end up with the same problems, that we should be supporting, for instance, like orphanages in those countries where people can safely stay in their own land and funnel our money that way, just as an example. Also, near the end of the Trump administration, he did actually admit not admit, excuse me, he did allow over 3 million children were actually admitted into that DREAM Act. So there were many, many people who were saved in that, but they had to go through the process and do the paperwork, et cetera. So I think it just needs to be a little bit, clearer, and sorry about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Diaso. Counselor Carviallo.
Thank you, Madam President. I want to thank the council for bringing this forward. It's though I support the bill as it is. Medford has been a welcoming community to the Haitians going back 10, 12 years when there was a problem in Haiti, and many of them came here to live when their country was decimated. But again, as Councilor Scarpelli has mentioned, these are ceremonial things, and we need to concentrate more on Medford issues than ceremonial issues. So I will not be supporting this, though I do support the intent of it.
Counselor Collins, and then there's a few people on Zoom who would like to speak as well.
Thank you, Madam President. And thank you to everybody who's commented so far. And yeah, I just really wanted to, again, just focus back on the language of the resolution. And just, I think what I found, of course, it's a somewhat complicated issue. What I think, the important thing to focus on is that the, kind of the ask here is to say, we should be letting all immigrants, especially those applying for asylum, to go through that process. If that process is not being allowed, that's a problem. All immigrants should have the right to go through the asylum seeking process. So it's not, any sort of blanket, this one action should occur for all immigrants, this one shouldn't. It's just the option should be open. That's what it means to be an equitable and welcoming country, and to, do right by what we say we're trying to do as a country and as a society. And just, also just to focus in on the text of the resolution. I don't think this is, an attempt to relitigate any of the actions of past administrations or even present ones, but just to say, because of the trickle-down effects of all federal policies on our local ones, this is what we're advocating for. And on a more personal note, I completely appreciate and respect, counselors who want to keep the purview of what we put on the agendas here to just super local issues. I really do understand that, and I respect it. As I've stated before, my personal posture is that I do want to take the opportunity to advocate for policies that affect our community, even if they are things that we do not have authority over. So I take that as, just an explanation for why I put on and co-sponsor resolutions like these. And I do hope that in some indirect way, declarations like these do have a cumulative effect in getting the ear of people higher up in government to say, this is what I need, this is what we're seeing on the ground in our community. And this is how to make our local levels safer for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Collins. Matthew Page Lieberman, name and address for the record, please.
Yes, hi, I'm Matthew Page Lieberman. I live in 15 Canal Street, though I'm visiting family in Florida at the moment. I just want to say that I'm extremely thankful, and I think here in the community, we're extremely fortunate to, have Councilor Singh and Collins advocating and bringing forth this bill. I used to live with a Haitian family in Medford, and, Haitian communities are one of the communities here that I think are really kind of created Medford as their home. And I don't see a lot of representation a lot of time. There's some Haitians in local government or commissions, but it's extremely fortunate now to see that members of the Haitian community have reached out to Councilor Singh, and then he's advocated for them, and that they're actually getting a voice and having people actually fight for them within our community. I very, very much support this. And I think one of the things that was in the resolution, something that I recall, is if anybody recalls the video of, police or people on horses whipping human beings as if they were animals. I think that's something perhaps we may forget when we're talking about these kind of convenient arguments about it's outside of our purview. That's this whole thing about whether or not it's within our purview, I think is a lot of times it's kind of conveniently applied. Sometimes we say that something's in our purview. Other times we just kind of make that up because we don't want to take on an issue that would really request that we stand up and take kind of a principle and expand what the job of an elected can actually be, to really make calls. It is a direct thing. It does have a direct impact on whether Haitian people are allowed to come into our community and make it their home too. And finally, I don't know, I think Councilors Singh and Collins didn't really articulate this, but I think what's within this is there is kind of an articulation for something about freedom. If we kind of take a look at our country, Although we don't officially have a religion, many times it's conceived of as, the American religion or the American ideology is one of freedom. We hear a lot about talk about freedom, especially during this pandemic, and when people are opposed to kind of cooperating and taking actions that would, be conscious for all of us. One thing that's really off the radar a lot when we talk about freedom is freedom of movement. Freedom of allowing human beings to go wherever they want to go, wherever they want to live, and whatever kind of lives they want to have. So, there's a lot of us that we want to talk about where people can't live here, they can't do that, they can't drive there, they can't build here. If we don't want this many people or people who look like this or that to live in our neighborhood. And I think that a critical thing about freedom is, yes, freedom of movement. And so I completely support this. I'm completely thankful. I hope that as many people vote for this as possible to allow people the freedom of movement and for us to stop prohibiting and stop supporting any kind of system or regime that would put us on a pedestal and exclude other people from freedom of movement and being able to live wherever they want to live. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Page Lieberman. Mr. Giglio, and then we'll go to Mr. Navarro in the chambers. Name and address for the record, please. Bill Giglio.
Hello. Oh, can you hear me? I'm sorry. Did you unmute me? I apologize. All right. So I have just a couple of quick questions for Councilor Singh, Councilor Calling. So if you're saying, in Medford, you want them to be, you don't want deportation. How many have actually been deported that live here in Medford and not being deported for a criminal reason? Do we have that number?
You can ask questions that the counselors don't have to reply. It's not a time for crosstalk. You're allowed to state an opinion, state your comments, but the counselors don't have to respond to questions.
They don't have to, but can they?
For Robert's rules, there's no direct crosstalk.
I understand.
Your comments are directed at the chair.
Okay. That's fine. And then one of the paragraphs I'm reading, it says, whereas in early September 2021, that they're being sent, anyone crossing over the borders is being held and then sent back. But I believe, wasn't that policy put in because that was in the midst of a major pandemic, which I've heard for literally the last 2 years from everybody on this council, we can't even do major things in Medford. But if people are pouring into the country without being tested or we don't know, and they're literally being put on planes and dropped off into states like New York and here in Massachusetts, is that not concerning to anybody?
Motion to end debate.
Of course. Why?
Motion to end debate.
Why?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Giglio. Do you have any other questions?
Yeah. Why does he want to end this?
Because I don't believe that we should be spewing lies in the public forum.
What was the lie? I challenged the lie. I challenged the lie.
There's no crosstalk. We have other people who'd like to speak and offer their comments. If you have any further comments, please continue. Otherwise, we have other people who are waiting to speak.
As always, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Giglio. Mr. Navarro, name and address for the record, please.
William Navarre, 108 Medford Street, apartment 1B. Thank you for recognizing me, Madam President, and I'm glad to see several people here to speak on this issue. In particular, I heard from a couple councilors a concern that I sympathize with to some degree, that this isn't within the council's purview. And, when I read this thing the first time, I sort of said, you're going to tell President Biden what to do? He's not even going to read this. But then I learned that this is part of a regional effort of multiple communities in the region who are working on this together. There's some value in that. First of all, makes it more likely that President Biden will read this. I even heard that Representative Presley might be presenting it to him. If that's all true, it's more likely we'll see it. But that's only one piece of this. It's also a chance for the regional governments of this area, the governments in this region, to express their support for the Haitian community. And I remember during the Black Lives Matter uprising and so on, we had some meetings in this council, and I gave very brief comments on those. I think what I told as my recommendation to the council was to use those discussions as an opportunity to make sure that residents of color feel welcome to speak in these chambers, and at the time it was on Zoom. And I think that supporting this resolution can help that effects too, because you're saying you support the Haitian community and you want them here. You want them to come participate in the government of the city at city council. And one of the things we talked about a lot wasn't happening. There wasn't enough representation, people of color from the community. So I feel like it's symbolic, but it could have a real effect in that way. And so I think for those reasons, I would urge you to pass this, even though I respect and sometimes sympathize with the problem that we're just passing a lot of symbolic things. I mean, you don't have to tell me that, because I often hear city governments have passed Vision Zero and it doesn't prevent any pedestrian deaths. And I get kind of annoyed. You just pass symbolic thing. You know, and I'm always talking about various other things, big concrete things. You know, we need more housing. We can't just say we're welcoming and then not build any housing. You know, and I'm always saying these issues. But occasionally, this symbolic stuff could be helpful in terms of making the city a more welcoming place. So I thank the councilors who introduced it, and I hope the council will report this favorably. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mar. There's a motion from Vice President Barris to end debate. Eileen Lerner did have her hand up prior to that motion. So, Eileen Lerner, name and address for the record, please.
Eileen Lerner, 9 Adams Circle. And I want to thank Councillor Collins and Councillor Singh for this wonderful resolution that really is speaking directly to the Haitian American community in Medford. We talk about being welcoming, but then we don't want to do anything that really is welcoming. We just want to say we're welcoming. We want to pat ourselves on the back, but we're not doing anything unless we really listen to the Haitian American people in our community who are saying, this is what we need. This is what we need. And these people, these Haitian Americans are doing so much. They're doing all kinds of work. And I mean, they're taking care of the elderly, some of them, they're in the medical field, they're everywhere doing everything. And yet there's some resentment. Somebody wants to say, we have to pay and pay and pay. What the hell are you paying? You're not paying. You're gaining something from these people being in our community. And let us give them, as Matt was saying, freedom of movement. Let them bring their families here just like anybody else. And let us not punish people for fleeing countries that have just had a major earthquake or, whatever the catastrophe is. We're supposed to be a welcoming country. How can you forget that? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lerner. Councilor Singh.
I just wanted to start to wrap things up with the night, with some of, my thinking, is a kind of response to some of what we've heard tonight. When I first got this idea, like when I first got a draft of what other communities were passing, I too was a little skeptical given how, obviously symbolic and ceremonial it can be. But as Mr. Navarro has mentioned, then I learned more about this project. I learned more about how it was really a grassroots effort that's happening in many, many communities around the area, but also not just around the area. This is an effort happening in other metro areas where there are a lot of Haitian Americans as well. Mr. Navarro mentioned Representative Presley's letter, or bringing it up with President Biden. She's also been spearheaded an effort to send a letter in which dozens and dozens of Congress people have signed to the president. And, these leaders, these congressional leaders have worked closely with Haitian American leaders, and they've decided that this is the right step for our community. Who am I to say that their strategy is wrong, right? They've obviously thought about it a lot. We can't deny them of their own agency. And then I thought back to 2 years ago, I guess, a year and a half ago, where, our city council was also looking at some more symbolic resolutions. And I thought back to when I was watching city council meetings and when I realized, I know these resolutions are symbolic, but they're important to me. And it's important that, it was important to me that our city council, number one, introduced something, number two, passed something that was symbolic. Because to me, and I think to a lot of people who don't necessarily see themselves represented at the public forum, symbolism is the first step to action, right? And in this case, our city council can't act on much, but passing something ceremonial, passing something symbolic was an important indicator to me that I could trust my city government when I needed it behind my back. And I think this is what people in our community and people in the Haitian American community are asking for is, can I trust my government to act on even simple symbolic measures? Because if you aren't willing to do the symbolic, you probably aren't willing to take real action. And so I thought back to that, and then I thought, you know what, this is the right thing to introduce. I've also, I guess I want to end with an anecdote. I've spent much of my week talking to very close family friends in Ukraine, in Kyiv, who are people who would likely be targeted if a Russian invasion were to target Kyiv, right? And in talking to them, it was astonishing to see how little they wanted to flee and how little they wanted to leave their homes, their jobs, their family, their pets, everything that they had. And, now the situation is looking different, and the planning of leaving itself is a logistical nightmare. And this isn't me going through the migrant experience, but then I thought back to Haitian migrants who moved to Medford. And I thought back to how much they must not have wanted to leave, even though the circumstances were not great. I thought back to how difficult it must have been for them to get to a new place, number one, and number two, settle in a new place. And I think it's important that our community show them anything it can, even if it is symbolic. Just to say, we're behind you, we're standing with you, and you can trust us.
Thank you, Councillor Singh.
Madam President,
Councillor Scarpelli.
just to be clear, symbolism is important, but when we present symbolic gestures on a weekly basis, more than once, more than twice, all they are is symbols and empty words. To say that a council maybe tonight will vote no on the symbolic resolution, but doesn't want to see movement is a total farce. I think that we have tried to see and waited for action in so many ways in the last 8 months, and truly have seen nothing but more roundtable discussions and actual lack of hands on, feet on the ground, getting things done for our community members that have struggled so vitally in the past. So again, I'm going to say this. I support my Haitian community. I support the movement and anything we can do to help. But again, when we keep sending out symbolic resolutions after symbolic resolutions, they fall on deaf ears. And when it comes time that this council really needs the state delegates or our federal delegates to really understand that we support something that we truly need, this community truly needs, because there's something truly glaringly wrong, we just fall back on another symbolic resolution. So again, that's why I'm voting. Not that I don't want to see movement, because that's an absolute farce. I've lived our lives doing this for people. So I just think that careful with the comments, because it's moving on.
Thank you, Councilor Scarpelli. Matthew P.H. Lieberman.
Hi, yes, thank you. So I'm just trying to really understand, just from at home, I've heard fortunately, there haven't been too many arguments in opposition to this on the grounds that it was outside of the purview. Mostly of what I'm hearing is that it's either symbolic and therefore it would somehow jeopardize any movement on this initiative, or that it's ceremonial. And I'm really kind of confused because I've watched so many meetings over the past, I don't know, 13 or 14 years I've lived in this community. These city council meetings where we're like congratulating somebody for having won like some championship at the school, or we're praising somebody because they're retiring and we love them so much in the community. Those to me seem very ceremonial, but that doesn't get in the way of us like kind of commemorating and taking the time or doing like a moment of silence for, or anything for people in our community. It's very strange that I'm hearing an opposition to this idea of ceremonialness, particularly on this issue, or that it's somehow symbolic on this issue, when it's quite clear to me, and it's been made explicit, that this is a call to action for the federal government to change its policy in collaboration with regionally, with other people. So I'm just trying to understand, are we going to continue to hear when people are opposed to it and they're looking for some bad faith argument that something is ceremonial or it's only symbolic? Is that what's going to happen? Because from this point on, I can imagine all of us very cynically bring up that something's ceremonial or symbolic every time that happens in the future. I'm just trying to understand. Perhaps somebody can clarify. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pagely. Any further discussion? Counselor Collins.
Just one last thing before I move for approval. I just wanted to state for the record, that I've stated my explanations for why I support resolutions like these, but I think, personally, I think that there's no reason why a genuine commitment and passion for service, showing up for the community can't coexist with a decision to not want to put forth as many advocacy resolutions. I think I chalk it up to a difference of strategic opinion. So I just wanted to put that out there and, for my fellow counselors. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Collins. Counselor Singh.
I just wanted to put on the record that, what I was saying was just an argument for why, even if it's ceremonial, I think we should pass it. I don't question anyone's intentions here. I think I'm actually very fortunate to work with colleagues, each of whom has done a lot for our marginalized communities here in Medford, every single one of us at this table. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't necessarily see, but each and every one of us behind the scenes has worked to engage more residents in our community that are traditionally excluded from our decision-making process. So I just wanted to put that on the record. I respect the healthy debate that we're having about resolutions such as these, but this one in particular. I just wanted to put that out there that I want everyone to know that I am fortunate to work with good colleagues who've done a lot for all of our communities here.
Thank you, Counselor Singh. On the motion of Counselor Singh and Counselor Collins, seconded by Vice President Barris. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Vice President Barris.
Yes.
Counselor Carviallo. Counselor Collins.
Yes.
Counselor Knight. Counselor Knight texted me in the middle of this saying he was having issues. He was dropping in and out, so he may not be available at this point either. I'm going to come back to him if that's all right, just in case.
I don't think he can hear it.
Counselor Scarpelli.
No, respectfully.
Counselor Singh.
Yes.
President Morrell.
Yes.
I'm going to try Counselor Knight one more time. And I still see that he still appears to be absent. Yep.
All right, 4 in the affirmative, 2 in the negative, 1 absent. The motion passes. Reports of committees 22-013 and 21-577, February 15th, Committee of the Whole report to follow. This was the Elections Commission discussion as well as the senior tax deferral. Both we agreed upon as a council, and they should be coming back to a regular agenda soon to be voted on.
Motion to accept.
On the motion of Counselor Carviallo, seconded by Vice President Barris, to accept the committee report. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Madam President, given that Counselor Knight is absent, can we do voice votes?
You're not going to hear an objection.
All right.
are we?
All those in favor? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. The report is accepted.
Yeah, I like that.
20
Yes.
22-014, February 16th, 2022, Committee of the Whole report to follow. This was the Page Family and Medical Leave discussion. We moved to have a further meeting with a number of department heads to understand how this could be implemented in Medford.
Second.
On the motion of Councilor Carviallo, seconded by Councilor Scarpelli to accept. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Public participation. Is there anyone who would like to participate either on Zoom or in the chambers? Has everyone participated tonight already? Seeing and hearing none. Closes public participation. Records. The
Madam
records.
President, just before we go to records, I'd like to make a motion regarding reports due and deadlines. And that motion is to request a report within 10 days from the police department, building department, and health department on any complaints they've received relative to, let me know, Mr. Clerk, when you're ready.
Just get started. Yeah, I mean, it's slow. Oh, it's terrible. So you
You
just-
can see
Oh.
Received relative to papers 20-085, 20-562, 20-563, 20-586, 20-639, and 21-363, with the intent of hopefully getting those reviews completed and off the agenda.
I second.
Hi, Bill Giglio, Winter Campaign. So, first of all, I'd like to say congratulations. to Cole.
21-363.
Congratulations. So I like.
Yes, from the police department, building department, and health department, on any complaints received relative to those. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Some of them are 30-day reviews, 60-day reviews, 90 days.
Civil, I would almost say, is like getting pulled over on a cop saying, getting pulled over, pulling a red light, maybe him saying go, no, or just getting a simple traffic stop, ticket for blowing a red light. It does seem to shift a little bit.
Right.
Now, if there's a
Okay, on the motion of Councilor Bears to get those reports.
Request a report on those, on
those
complaints
paper
relative
numbers.
to those 6 items, yes.
Second by Councilor Scarpelli. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Records, the records of the, what was the last meeting?
February 15th.
February 15th meeting were passed to Councilor Collins. Councilor Collins, how did you find them?
I found them to be in order and I move for approval.
Unbelievable.
On the motion of Councilor Collins, seconded by Councilor Sang, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed, the motion passes. Before we adjourn, if I could just briefly thank my counselors for allowing me to dial in for the past 8 weeks, even as the chair, as I was able to stay home with my son a little bit longer. I do believe Councilor Knight's not here, but there was one meeting where I think more than half the council served as a chair. So I really appreciate you doing that for me, and I appreciate the accommodations. And also just want to note that parking enforcement is going to starting February 28th. There's city communications going out about that, but just for people to be aware of that. Anything else? On the motion of Councilor Scarpelli to adjourn, seconded by,
Second, but we have a subcommittee on ordinances and rules meeting tomorrow night at 6 o'clock to review the council rules.
thank you, Vice President Barris. On the motion of Councilor Scarpelli to adjourn, seconded by Councilor Carviallo. All those in favor? All those opposed? Meeting is adjourned.